Everybody is kind of waiting for statements that US President Donald Trump will make today. There was an announcement a few days ago that on Monday, that is today, Trump will make some statements in regards to Russia. Everyone expects some threats to be issued from Washington. Yet again, everyone expects that Trump will talk about additional financial assistance to the Kyiv regime, additional military aid or assistance to Western proxy Kyiv regime. And well, most likely that's exactly what is going to happen, because we have, for example, this report on TASS news agency, and all the other Russian media outlets did pay attention to this news that was originated from Axios, a Western media outlet, that Trump might announce a plan to supply Kyiv with weapons today, including offensive weapons. And when it comes to these offensive weapons, rumors are that in Trump's announcement we might hear about future transfers of the to Kyiv regime, not just potentially artillery systems, infantry fighting vehicles, armored personnel carriers, and so on, but also long-range missiles, ATACMS missiles, possibly, and also JSSM cruise missiles, long-range cruise missiles that can reach modified versions, can strike up to 1,000 kilometers away, by the way, which is, if this will become true, this missile is going to be longest range weapons that formerly Kyiv regime will have, although we all understand that all these long-range strikes deep into Russian territory are orchestrated, organized by NATO member states. In case of ATACMS, it was US military personnel and intelligence. In case of British Storm Shadow missiles, cruise missiles, it was British military personnel and intelligence. In case of French missiles, French Scalp PG missiles, it was French military personnel. And yes, we just have to wait. There is too much speculation on air right now. And let's wait a couple of hours and we'll probably find out. But most likely, Trump's statements today will be perceived by many as a sort of declaration of a war on Russia. He will go crazy, I guess, in his statements. And well, question is, how will Russia respond? But before I go into that topic, let me give you this video, dear friends, of one of the potential weapons that US might deliver. This is, you can see right now on your screen, JASSM cruise missile that in modified versions have a range of up to 1,000 kilometers, and Moscow will be well in reach of this missile. So if ATACMS have like 300-kilometer range, then this one's gonna be much more capable one in this regard. And well, yet again, question is how will Moscow react, especially if we take in account that Trump made preliminary statements, let's say, in advance to whatever he is going to declare today. And in his statements, he was extremely disrespectful towards Russian president. Let me give you short clips of Trump's statements on the matter.
On Russia tomorrow? We're going to see what we will see tomorrow, okay? We have the Secretary General, as you know, Europe has announced sanctions. But I am very disappointed with President Putin. And I thought he was somebody that meant what he said, and he'll talk so beautifully, and then he'll bomb people at night. We don't like that. Thank you, everybody. Thank you. Yeah. Well, I'm going to have a meeting with the Secretary General who's coming in tomorrow. But we basically are going to send them various pieces of very sophisticated military, and they're going to pay us 100% for them. And that's the way we want it. And we've been trying to get that again. I don't think Biden ever asked for it. We're in for about $350 billion Europe is in for 100 billion. That's a lot of money, 100, but they should be in actually for more than us. So as we send equipment, they're going to reimburse us for that equipment. Doesn't that sound good? That's the way it should have been a long time ago.
So as you can see, dear friends, Trump is not shying away to escalate. He's talking about Russian president in very disrespectful manner, and it's kind of ironic, isn't it, when Trump, person that just a few days ago disregard his own statements in terms of Epstein files, now he's talking about some other people. I mean, how out of touch with reality this personality really is. I mean, it's a shameful, right? But in his statements, you can see that he's talking about some advanced weaponry, and that's why probably rumors began that U.S. might supply Kyiv regime, formerly Kyiv regime. In reality, it's going to be U.S. militaries, right, that will use it. So these JA-SSM missiles and also ATACMS, possibly modified variations that have a longer range than 300 kilometers. He also announced that European countries, European NATO member states will basically pay for whatever weapons US will transfer formally to Kyiv regime. And well, now the question, what should we all expect? By the way, big question, of course. Well, one might speculate, of course, but we just don't know. We just don't really know. My guess is that, I mean, many members of our community already are asking that how Russia will react if Trump together, or US together with Germany, will begin deploying against Russia long-range missile systems that can reach Moscow and way beyond Moscow. And well, my reading of the big picture is that, as I was predicting, by the way, since forever, I guess, we should expect an extreme level of escalation. It was just too obvious to me that Western ruling class, globalists, and their controlled regimes in the West were not ready to acknowledge that they lost this proxy war. So therefore, they will continue escalation, and that's exactly what is happening. So I think Russia should be ready for very, very significant increase in terrorist attacks on Russia, very significant increase in the long-range missile and drone attacks on Russia, and all sorts of provocations, right? That's inevitable. That will definitely happen, right? How Moscow will react, that's a different topic. If these provocations that US, UK, France, Germany, and others from the NATO will come up with, if these provocations would not be tremendously deadly, and by saying so, I mean if as a result of attacks, NATO attacks on Russia, on daily basis, hundreds or potentially thousands of civilians will die, or even militaries, by the way. In that case, Moscow probably will have no option but to reconsider its calculus in terms of response to the NATO. But if level of fatality as a result of this extreme escalation from the NATO would not be higher than it is right now, and unfortunately civilians are dying literally on daily basis, by the way, on Russian territory as a result of terrorist activity of NATO and their proxy Kyiv regime, but then probably Moscow would not react in any way, shape, or form. Probably not even statements will be made about this escalation. I don't know. I just don't know, man. It is anybody's guess at this point how Moscow will respond in escalation, because at this point, I guess no one really understands why Russian leadership still continues to exercise restraint. I really don't think anybody in this world, with the exception of maybe Russian president himself and few people around him, really understands what what this policy of restraint is based on and what we want to achieve with this constant restraint, when Western world clearly sees it as a weakness of Russia. They don't see it as a Russian attempt to avoid large-scale escalation. They see it as a weakness, and they continue to escalate. And we are now at a point when there is a open discussion, at least on a public level, and in few hours, Trump will most likely begin talking about it too, about these long-range weapon systems that U.S. will provide Kyiv regime to strike deep into Russian territory, including on Moscow. And dear friends, you remember what I was saying, that West is planning to transfer Kyiv regime into a nuclear armed regime. I think after this long-range missile topic, next stage is going to be exactly that, transformation of Kyiv regime into a nuclear armed regime, because yet again, Western ruling class have no reverse gear, right? They don't know what diplomacy is. They don't know how to de-escalate. For 500 years, practically, these generational criminal clans that are in charge of collective West, royal families, aristocracies, and so on, they did not knew what no is, right? They were basically terrorizing almost the entire planet. And generations among them have been reasoned with that attitude that no one can stand against them, right? And that's why they don't know what diplomacy is. They lost understanding of it. And that's why they don't understand any other language but force. So let's see, by the way, let's see how Moscow will react on the inevitable escalation. But meanwhile, let's continue with the news, by the way, that I have prepared for you for this update. Trump's ally, extreme Russia hater Lindsey Graham, senator, unveiled some of the points that Trump might talk about during today's statements. Let's go through this news. Sanctions bill currently in the Senate would give U.S. president, and obviously Lindsey Graham is talking about the sanctions, anti-Russian sanctions bills that includes 500% tariffs on every country that is cooperating with Russia, especially in the energy sector, right? So sanctions bill currently in the Senate would give U.S. President Donald Trump a sledgehammer to use against Russia and its trading partners. Hawkish Senator Lindsey Graham has stated Trump previously said he may impose additional sanctions if Russia-Ukraine negotiations fail to produce a ceasefire. He also accused Russian President Vladimir Putin of stalling their talks. In an interview with the CBS News aired on Sunday, Graham, who co-authored the bill with Democrat Richard Blumenthal, also another Russia hater, by the way, and human hater, basically, a Zionist scumbag, said that Trump has left the door open regarding Russia. Despite talking a hard line on the other nations, the door is about to close, he warned. Dick and I have got 85 co-sponsors in the United States Senate for congressional sanctions, with the sledgehammer available to President Trump to go after Putin's economy and all those countries who pop up the Putin's war machine. Graham said the legislation would authorize Trump to impose up to 500% tariffs on nations that continue trading with Russia. Graham signaled out China, India, and Brazil. He stressed that Trump would have maximum flexibility in enforcing the measures. And yet again, dear friends, I think Trump's today's statements that are going to be based on threats, by the way, against Russia, will be seen by many as declaration of war, unofficial declaration of the war, most likely. And I really hope Russian leadership will stop exercising this freaking restraint policy and begin striking back on all NATO members that are directly engaged in this war against Russia, in this proxy war against Russia, right? Because yet again, this is only language that they understand, man. until we are exercising restraint, they're going to escalate, and more people are dying meanwhile, right? With every escalation or steps that West is taking, more people are dying and more destruction is happening, right? So we have to stop these psychopaths, man. We just have to. We don't really have option. Let's see, dear friends, when Trump will make statements, I will probably, if enough information will be available, I will probably make a second live stream today, and I will share information from US and also potentially commentaries that here in Russia will be made on Trump's statements. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is reporting that some loud statements being made in US in regards to Russian assets. Also, US Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent insists on radical measures on frozen Russian assets. Senator Lindsey Graham said in a conversation with their CBS News. And rumors are circulating, by the way, that Trump may go ahead with steps that even Biden's administration was refusing to do, which is stealing frozen Russian assets. In US jurisdiction, there is $100+ billion of Russian investments, and rumors are that Trump's administration may start officially stealing this money, $5 billion on the first stage, and then whatever they can steal, right? So very much possible from US political elites. No one should expect any adequacy, by the way. These are scum of humanity, right? Literally scum of humanity that being chosen by true decision makers, right? And then put in a position of decision-making process so that they will sign up on the papers that these really influential forces in US will order them to do, right? Whoever is pulling the strings there. So no one should expect any adequate steps from current political class, either in US or in Europe, by the way, for that matter. Most likely they are going to steal Russian frozen assets. Probably they already did even. RIA Novosti, meanwhile, is also reporting that Macron, French president, names a number of countries participating in the coalition of their willing. So the number of countries participating in this so-called coalition of willing to help Ukraine has reached 30, French President Emmanuel Macron stated. And recently, dear friends, while French president was in UK, he made statement that Paris and London reach agreement to increase expeditionary corpus or whatever they have from 10,000 to 50,000 rapid deployment forces or something, from 10,000 to 50,000. And they probably will push whatever pressure, or they will use whatever leverage they have over the other NATO member states to basically add some more troops to this expeditionary corpus. Yet again, 50,000 plus troops from Europe, by the way, will last on the battlefield right now, maybe for a month. That's about it, right? So in practical terms, we just don't give a damn, right? They can send entire day armies. We will just obliterate them. No doubts about that. Unfortunately, it will take casualties from our side also, but we will take care of them, right? No one has any doubts about it. But yet again, only question I have personally is that, how long Russian army going to fight enemies with both hands being tied behind their backs, man? That's just, in my personal understanding, irrational, right? Russia has enough very capable weapon systems that can actually obliterate enemies even before they will reach a line of contact, right? Way before they will reach line of contact. And that will save Russian citizens, right? That will save Russian civilians, that will save Russian troops. So why we are waiting, or what we are waiting for? I don't know, man. I really don't understand. This frustration is settling in more and more people, I guess, worldwide and here in Russia too, among pro-Russian people, by the way, I'm talking about, because when you can actually obliterate your enemy in matter of hours, and you are not doing it, and as a result there is so much destruction and so much casualties, man. I mean, questions being raised, right? Only explanation one may come up with is that, well, if Russia will begin deploying some extreme force, in that case, situation might quickly deteriorate towards the nuclear war between, let's say, NATO and Russia. Yes, maybe, by the way. So whatever has to happen will happen, right? So what we are caring, why should we care about this stuff? If World War III is going to happen, then let's strike first, man. If it's inevitable, it's inevitable, right? I don't know, man. Whatever is have to happen will happen, man. No matter how hard you try to avoid it. That's how it was always. That's how it will be always, right? And this is not just a fatalist point of view, by the way. This is scientifically correct view. Everything that had happened and will happen already actually had happened based on latest knowledge in physics, by the way. Ask strong theorists, right? Experts in string theory, and they will confirm that. Nevertheless, Macron also went to say that French military budget will double for 2027 compared to 2017 and will reach 64 billion euros. Okay, this is just France. If you add all NATO member states, by the way, combined, they are probably spending on military about $2 trillion, maybe even more, and they are still whining, by the way. Military industrial complex is still not happy with such a influx of money, and they are ordering their puppets or their bitches that they put in a position of decision making all over their collective West to allocate more funds, right? 2 trillion is not enough for them. They want more. They want all money that there is in the West. And the process is underway. Right? All NATO member states increasing spending on military, enriching military industrial complex and themselves, right? Because they work for them, while cutting spending on all the programs that are assisting ordinary citizens. That's the modern collective West, by the way. And obviously, no one is surprised, I guess, that Zelensky and his criminal associates are very much emboldened with their latest developments. Finally, US is back on its tracks to lead this proxy war against Russia. And, Zelensky is making quite tough statements that they're going to conduct long-range strikes deep into Russian territory. So Ukrainian leader Vladimir Zelensky has threatened the new strikes deep inside the Russia days after US pledged to resume military aid to Kiev. Yet again, RT sometimes writes some crap, by the way, that I don't really understand what for or why or who is the editor-in-chief here, by the way. When US halted military aid, when RT staff checked it, right, that US actually halted military aid, and now they resume it. What the hell, man? When you are talking about some alleged processes, at least write that allegedly, when US stopped it. Come on, man. I don't know. RT is such a freaking disappointment, right? So Zelensky made the remarks after meeting with the defense minister, Rustem Umerov, commander-in-chief of the armed forces, Alexander Syrsky, and chief of the general staff, Andrei Gnatov, on Sunday. Our units will continue to destroy their occupiers. I mean, these bitches are talking about, they are occupiers, by the way. They are occupiers on historical Russian territory and should be neutralized. That's all. They are on historical Russian territory and should be neutralized. All these freaking Nazis and the fascists, by the way. If they want to occupy some land, I mean, they have Western Ukraine that also don't belongs to them, belongs to Poland, Hungary, Romania, right? If they want to let them occupy those territories, but Russian territory will be freed from these bastards, man, 100%. But nevertheless, Zelensky is threatening to strike deep into Russian territory, and as I said, they are emboldened. By the way, they are emboldened. Of course, they know that they're going to receive larger, not them directly, but US gonna send its military intelligence assets and also long-range weapon systems that will be then used to strike deep into Russian territory. Kiev will take responsibility for these long-range strikes, and that's why Zelensky is talking this tough or acting this tough together with his criminal associates. Okay, we will see how all this story will end, and it's not going to end well for either collective West or for their proxies in Ukraine. I'm quite sure about it. No matter how long it will take, we will decimate these motherfuckers, man. We will exterminate them all, man. That's what is going to happen, right? Even if we will die in the process, but we will take them out, all of them, man. That is going to happen for sure. Yet again, unfortunately, there is a high risk that due to terrorist nature of the US regime, due to terrorist nature of the regimes in other NATO member states, we will observe now a tremendous increase in terrorist attacks on Russian Federation, and also tremendous increase in long-range strikes on Russian territory. And at some point, Russian president, who is, time and again demonstrates that he's yes, top politician, heavyweight, and he wants to deal with situation with as much as possible with political means. But nevertheless, at some point, he will probably have to say that against Russia are elements that don't really understand language, human language, right? So only language they understand is force. So we will have to take some measures, and we will. I really hope Putin will stop exercising this restraint, man. It's just really too much. And RT is also reporting that, Istanbul talks format is exhausted, according to Kiev regime. The format of direct peace negotiations between Moscow and Kiev in Istanbul has practically exhausted itself due to Russia's maximalist demands. Ukrainian First Deputy Foreign Minister Sergei Kuslitsa has claimed, and by the way, rumors are that head of Ukrainian delegation during this Istanbul talks, Umerov, who is the current defense ministry, is going to be released from his position in upcoming days, and he will most likely leave the position of head of delegation too in Istanbul. And clearly, by the way, Western enemies of Russia are on high spirit. They think they are about to begin final assault on Russia, and they don't need this freaking show, by the way, that they come up with when it comes to Istanbul talks. So why Russia spend any time talking to them, I have no freaking idea. But at least some progress was made in terms of humanitarian direction, right? At least POWs were released there, and that's a good thing. So it was not completely useless because exactly this humanitarian component of their outcome. But nevertheless, in terms of true de-escalation and attempts to bring closer final resolution of the conflict, these talks in Istanbul were not that effective, let's say diplomatically that way, right? So Kiev now is basically announcing cancellation of Istanbul talks because yet again they are on high spirit. They think not just Kiev regime, but take a look at the statements, by the way, that you hear from Washington, from Berlin, from Paris, from London. They are all on high spirit, by the way. They have impression, they are living impression that, they are about to, I don't know, achieve a victory. And they're gonna learn hard way. They're gonna learn hard way how wrong they are, by the way. Excuse me. They're gonna learn hard way that they are very much mistaken. And on the topic of this creation of the Bolsheviks, Ukraine, Trump's special envoy Kat Kellogg arrived in Ukraine this morning, and rumors are that he's gonna stay in Kiev for a week. Okay, probably Kellogg will coordinate terrorist activity of with local assets of the West all the terrorist activity that Washington, London, Paris, Berlin, and others will prepare. Right. That's the only reason why Kellogg will stay in Kiev for a week.
Hello everyone, I hope you find informative and useful this short clip from main news update, and if so, please click that like button and leave some commentary just about anything. It might help to deal with the algorithm and reach wider audience. And if you like my work in general and want to support to save this media project, you can assist through several ways. You can donate to this project through PayPal platform or Boosty, also with the crypto currencies, or you can subscribe to my Patreon page and page on Boosty, where I have quite a lot of extra content on regular basis. All the links are on this video in description box and in the pinned comment. And of course, many thanks to everyone who already helped and continues to support. Thank you.